What a day for news this is. Wow, this is going to look bad for a lot of people. It's not being reported on very much. It's just astounding. The fact that this isn't being reported on very much is itself a news story. Guess what? The FBI has found no evidence that the January 6th insurrection was an insurrection. No major crime committed. No conspiracy except the one that they engaged in. The people that were there, the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers, were seduced into the idea partly by the FBI. So, I have some notes. FBI confirms no insurrection, only minor charges will be laid, vandalism, trespassing, that sort of stuff. No conspiracy to riot. Except, well, no, that's not right. No conspiracy for an insurrection. If it was an insurrection, they would have brought guns. There were, I think, when it all comes out, there were about 36 people who did plan to get in, but they didn't have a plan for what to do when they got in there, which suggests to me that they weren't very serious people. And there are 9 unindicted co-conspirators. I think it's 9. A co-conspirator is a person who conspired with. Those 9, I don't know where I got that number, it might not be exactly right, are FBI informants. One of whom apparently, or maybe this is from the other case, punched his wife out at a swingers party. I don't think FBI informants are, generally speaking, the most upstanding people, but yeah, I think the only people that are really seriously committed an insurrection is the FBI. What we saw was Congress people, police, ushering most of the people at that thing through. 507 have been arrested, but most of them were invited through. They thought they were on a tour. No sedition, no insurrection, no serious crimes, and still there's a bunch of people in solitary confinement. What for? Seriously, what for? So, that's absolutely huge news. It would be really funny to look back, January 6th insurrection, and see how many times those words co-located. How many times did those two words go together before there was a proper investigation? Trump made a foolish speech, I think, before. That's true. But those people were there standing up for democracy. I'm curious who's going to moderate the debate. I think there's only going to be 2. Is it going to be another committee? Obviously, that was a disaster. In the first one, they had, 5 people or something? All women, wasn't it? I think it was. 5 women working as a committee to moderate a debate, and it was a disaster, the first one. So are they planning on doing that again? As it turns out, Canada's planning to bring not just translators, but cooks and drivers and maintenance staff and anybody involved with the Canadian effort in Afghanistan, most of whom would have been very handsomely paid. especially whoever was engaged with the military operations, were very handsomely paid. And you wonder just how committed those people were to the project rather than the paycheck, especially since it's coming out that so many of the Afghan soldiers were heroin addicts. There's footage from the time military people, kind of young guys too, saying, yeah, if they were checking these guys for doing drug tests on these guys, 90% of them, I don't know whether they'd be kicked out, but they'd be found to be heroin addicts. So the United States and Canada, most likely, were paying heroin addicts. And apparently, if you wanted to get some sort of a mission done, you'd have to do it just before payday. Because after payday, they would all scamper off. I don't know, show up like a week again before payday or whatever, and put in some effort. None of them could read English. None of the military personnel. So were they really devoted to women's rights and to freedom and democracy and all that, or were they just there for the paycheck? And why is it that Canada now is so interested in getting them back and doesn't even talk about the Canadian citizens that are still stuck there? You could argue that it's because those people are in greater danger, which might even be true. And let's say that, okay, we're going to bring Afghan citizens back to Canada before Canadian citizens, and it's because the Afghanis are in more danger. Let's say we made that sacrifice. By the way, the people in the Canadian citizens didn't decide to make this sacrifice. This is the Canadian government, and most of the media say, well, we have to get these people back. We've abandoned them. They're saying they're in so much danger and everything, which probably are. Okay, so let's say that, okay, we decide we're going to bring the Afghan people to Canada first. Okay, then, like Jagmeet, can you then stop calling us racist? Is there anything we can do? What can we do? The Afghani soldiers aren't very white, are they? We accept more people from more places per capita than any country in the world, likely because our population is getting old and we have a very big country. But like at some point, can you knock it off with the racism stuff? Earlier I suggested that Jagmeet's a better actor than Trudeau. That would imply that Jagmeet was a good actor, I think. I didn't say that he was a good actor. I said that he was better than Trudeau. Yesterday he went to a grave site where they had found, the kids. Aboriginal people knew the kids were there. But he goes there and he cries some crocodile tears. I don't think that he fooled Aboriginal people. People have been going and bawling their eyes out about Aboriginal issues for probably 20 years now. Really big time over the last 10. And how did it actually benefit Aboriginal people? They're sick of it. Don't cry about it, Jagmeet. You don't give a shit. You're so transparent. And it looks like Jagmeet Singh has a good chance of winning in Alberta. Ha. Wow. That's scary. I mean, as scary as Trudeau is, Jagmeet Singh is even worse. So I'm wondering, do politicians need to cry to be elected now? Has Aaron O'Toole cried? I bet you can get him to cry about something. Maybe if a guy cries, and men are required to cry more than women, and maybe there's some sense in it, because if a guy cries, then at least he's not the strong man type, right? Like Trump doesn't cry, does he? Just wanted to mention why you can't trust experts. You can't trust experts because they're too invested in what they have to say. And quite often you get experts, there's no consequences to them getting it wrong. Theresa Tam, I think, will never face any sort of questioning for what she did. In the United States, Fauci's on trial. And he's on trial because he said at one point that the United States was not paying for gain-of-function research in China. And that turned out to be a lie. I don't even know that Theresa Tam has been asked that question. She can, and there's very little doubt that we did, because we dump money into China. They say they did this. We don't know what they did actually, do we? Biden didn't listen to the experts from the police departments in so many American cities. He didn't listen to the border guards between United States and Mexico, obviously. He didn't listen to the military when he did this idiotic thing in Afghanistan. I still seriously can't believe that they're going to force doctors to do gender reassignment surgeries on people that they don't think are suitable for that kind of surgery. Oh, that is amazing. Oh, another thing I thought was interesting is that so far the wokies aren't going after the architecture. Like, you could go downtown Victoria and there's a lot of buildings that were built essentially by colonists, right? I'm surprised that does the Times Colonists still exist, that newspaper in Victoria? Anyway, I can't imagine that name lasting very long, but they don't attack the buildings. Isn't that remarkable? Because in Russia we have such an example of communists setting out to destroy architecture, beautiful architecture, traditional, and replace it with the concrete blocks. They did the same thing in China. The amount of beautiful architecture that was just razed to the ground and destroyed is remarkable. And so far they haven't made any move to do that. I'll give them credit. They haven't made any move to do that in Canada, except for the churches, of course. What else? They haven't gone after the architecture. I didn't hear Trudeau say anything about the church burnings, except for, well, yeah, it's probably not a good idea, something like that. Oh, Biden and his press secretary, as it happened, were on vacation the day that the United States pulled out of Afghanistan. Some people would say this is the biggest mistake that the American military has ever made, the biggest blunder. I think it was the most obvious blunder, but there's people who really know about what a mess history used to be, and so they'll say, well, actually, there's so many ridiculous things have happened in the past. This might not be the most ridiculous, and then again, it might be. Nobody can find any sense in it at all. He's senile. You have people who say that woke ideologies are going to destroy the West, right? And so if you have that theory, if you have any theory, the best proof that you're right is your predictive power. We predicted what would happen in the cities. We predicted what would happen on the border. We couldn't have predicted what would happen in Afghanistan. That's over our heads even. That's just such madness. We could have predicted he was going to do something ridiculous because of his senility, but didn't predict that. Did not predict that. The war was to be over 3 weeks before. Why were there any Canadians left in Afghanistan at all?